Thanks, Hugo. Delighted to invite to the stage, please, Hugh Brasher, who is the CEO of London Marathon Events, Dawna Stone, who is the CEO of the Abbott World Marathon Majors Series, Ted Metellus, who is both Chief Events Production Officer for the New York Roadrunners and the Race Director for New York City, TCS New York City Marathon, and Wayne Larden, who is the Race Director from Sydney Marathon. Please join us on stage. Welcome all. So we are very fortunate to be joined today by three race directors from some of those top-ranking marathons, as well as Dawna Stone from on behalf of the Abbott World Marathon Majors. Firstly, Dawna, could you tell us a bit about the World Marathon Majors and what's its purpose?
Yeah, sure. I was going to say first, I was going to whisper to Ted, I feel like a proud mama up there when I see those the races, so a real feel good. It's interesting because I look at the majors in two different ways. I look kind of behind the scenes, so not talking about the runners, but behind the scenes, it's all about sharing best practices. So when you operational excellence, you get a group together like this, and it's amazing what happens behind the scenes of them talking and just always striving to be better. It's not about like, okay, we're doing great, let's just status quo. It's about, hey, Hugh, what are you doing? Ted, what are you doing? Wayne, what are you doing? And the banter and the shared knowledge is just so impressive. And I think, once you get to a certain level, you should just never stop. You should always strive to get better and do more for the economy, do more for the community, do more for the runners, do more for charity. And that's what I see this group doing. So really, it's all about that operational excellence. And then on the runner side of it, right, when they end up wanting to get on that starting line, they expect a lot, right, from any race they're going to. But what the majors really does is develops this journey for them to go on. So getting to the starting of any marathon, whether it's a major or a small town marathon with 2,000 people or 1,000 people, and it is impressive, right, to go from start to finish of 26.2 miles. But I think what we've done at Abbott World Marathon Majors is created this journey for the runner that is just absolutely spectacular. So they're striving not to do just one major, but now to do 7 majors. And so it's a really impressive feat, and it's built a community of runners that it's like nothing I've ever seen before, right? You have this community of your friends, family, when you're doing a race together, spectators, but when you start getting these 6-star finishers that have done the 6-star journey, and down the road, the 9-star journey with another milestone coming, I think that's where this group has really come together and drive that to the runner.
And so to the other panelists, how has being a member of this partnership and this group, how has it impacted your ability to build your brand and build your presence? Hugh, would you like to go first?
It's Brasher, by the way, just to, not Brasher. But look, I think it is fantastic to be on a stage with my colleagues, my peers. The London Marathon would never have happened without the New York City Marathon. So my father co-founded the event with John Disley, and some of his running colleagues went to the New York City Marathon in 1978, and they came back and they told stories in a pub of what they'd seen and what they'd felt, and persuaded my father and John to go and see for themselves what they'd seen. And my father wrote an article in the Observer and basically said he'd won an Olympic gold medal himself in 1956, that he had been at the final of the World Cups. He'd seen Gordon Richards in the Derby, but he'd never heard the roar that he heard in New York, roaring the everyday person on in this incredible journey of 26.2 miles. And from that, he challenged London, and he too, did we have the heart and the soul to welcome the world? I think that the last 44 events have shown that we do. Sunday will do that even more. Dawna was talking about competition. TED at the moment is the largest race in the world. Hopefully we will take that title on Sunday. And just the competition that we have, the friendly rivalry, the way that we all we will absorb this, and I can guarantee you a next meeting in Chicago in June, there will be some serious arm wrestling, beer drinking or whatever, to go, well, I believe this or I believe that. So we really do help each other enormously. As Dawna said, there have been times, whether it's COVID, where the conversations that we were having, what was going on. This is all about how can we truly create a global marathon community. And marathon running is about creating a community. And the world needs that more now than ever before. And there are some amazing statistics just in terms of the growth of 18 to 29-year-olds. Is the biggest growth market that we all have. We had 840,000 people apply last year to take place in this year's event. 840,000 people. And the highest growth number of 105% was those 18 to 29-year-olds. Formula One, Drive to Survive, they paid a fortune to produce that, done an amazing job. I wish we were as good to say that our marketing had created this. It hasn't, but what we have created is this community, and it's a community based on kindness. It's a community based on caring for one another, and that is what our runners do for each other. You are going to run that 26.2 miles. You are going to come to a point where it is difficult, and a total stranger is going to help you. And you, in turn, will help a total stranger. And these are the things that we build together. So as much as we have this rivalry, we have this commitment to care for our community, a commitment to our brands, a commitment to the social purpose of our organisations. I think, New York Roadrunners and what they're doing with kids' activity, very much London Marathon, the foundation, we share that passion. Sport activity is a right. It should not be a privilege. And this government needs to sort that out, as every government does, to make it a right. It's the United Nations call it a right. That is what we need to do, because activity is so important for people's physical and mental health.
Absolutely. And Wayne, I'm interested to come to you to see if you have any reflections, being, as Hugo so gently put it, the baby of the Marathon Majors group. How has your membership impacted your journey?
We're a 20-year-old baby, in fact, actually. But yeah. as the baby, we have...
You're an adult.
We're a teenager, maybe. As the baby, of course, we've had the most to learn. And these guys, especially Hugh and Ted, when we started in the candidate program, we were a baby, and we had a lot of things that we had to learn, to improve on, to tick the criteria. I'm not sure whether people know what the candidacy program is, but the Abbott World Marathon Majors candidate program was designed to select 3 more World Majors. And part of that was checking a 104-point criteria with various elements across the board, and there was a lot of things that we weren't ticking when we started. And these guys have been fantastic. Hugh especially. I'd ring Hugh sort of any time. He'd always pick up the phone. Same with Ted. They'd email straight back. And the other race directors. So, they wanted us to succeed. They could see, and obviously they wouldn't have embarked on the strategy if it wasn't valuable for the series and the organisation as a whole. So helping us to succeed was important, and that's just how they are. They're very competitive with each other, and because I'm the baby, I don't cop that too much yet. I reckon in a couple more years I might. Although Hugh and I do have a long-standing disagreement about who's got the most spectacular finish line. So anyway, I still think we win that one, but we'll leave that for another day. But no, look, as the baby, we've had a lot to learn. These guys, the Abbott team, Dawna and her team, and all of the race directors have been incredibly supportive. We've grown. The first year of candidacy, we had 5,300 runners in the marathon. Second year of candidacy, we had 16,800 registrations, I should say. Third year, we had 24,500 registrations. So the growth's been incredible. And then once we became, and it was announced that we were the 7th Abbott World Marathon Major, shortly after that we opened the ballot for the 2025 event. And we had 79,800 people apply. So the power of the brand of the Abbott World Marathon Majors had an incredible impact on the growth of our event. And it's only going to keep going, and there's just real excitement from New South Wales government, from our funding partners, Destination New South Wales, that all of the agencies that work with us to deliver the Sydney Marathon. We've got 2 of our police representatives flown all the way from Sydney to learn from London Marathon, for example. This is how committed they are to making the TCS Sydney Marathon a success. So, yes, we're the baby, but we've been crawling. We're jogging now. We'll be sprinting soon, and hopefully we'll catch up to these guys. But no, they've been an incredible support for us.
It sounds like an incredible community, and we talk a lot about this sense of the spirit of a marathon. And Hugh, some of the points you were talking about there in terms of community, strangers helping each other. Interested to hear from your perspectives, what does it mean, this spirit of the marathon, and what does it mean to you to be a custodian of that spirit? Perhaps Ted?
Well, there's a couple of things. To the last point, there's a great African proverb that says, if you want to go fast, go alone. If you want to go far, go together. And I think that collectively we've gone together and really have gone far in growing this community, as Hugh has stated, and as Wayne has stated, and as Dawna has stated, as part of the Abbott World Marathon Majors. So being a city like New York, welcoming the world, is something that we at New York Roadrunners take great pride in. And being an international city, an incredibly diverse city, is a beautiful thing. And what is amplified and seen at the marathon with the spirit of the marathon is, it's amplified in a great scale. Hugh mentioned it well when his dad went and saw the marathon in 76. Was it 70?
78.
78. So 78.
79, sorry, 79.
79. So that was 3 years after the marathon left Central Park and went to Staten Island. So 1976, the marathon became a 5-borough marathon. So traversing Staten Island, Brooklyn, Queens, the Bronx, Manhattan, and making their way all the way around to finish in the park. And be celebrated, cheered, and shown love by complete strangers, family, friends, loved ones, people that reference Marathon Sunday, TCS New City Marathon Sunday as Marathon Sunday, to come out and show that love and support from the first to the final is truly part of that spirit. And there's a video a short and sweet video that I'd like to share with you all that really, really shows and encompasses what the spirit of the TCS New City Marathon is and what we do as part of the Abbott World Marathon Majors.
The last bit of magic that New York offers is the final finishers. Even though aid stations may have to shut down and the slowest racers may have to move to the sidewalks as roads reopen to car traffic, the finish line itself waits for every runner to complete the mission. More than 10 hours after the last wave starts in Staten Island, there are still runners crossing the line in Central Park. And the New York Marathon keeps the cameras rolling, the lights are still on, and crowds line up to give these final finishers a proper welcome. Ted Metellus, the race director, who is there to welcome the first finisher of the race, he also welcomes the last finisher as they cross the line too. This year, that last finisher was Super Mario, a 74-year-old Italian man who finished his 35th New York Marathon. Ted gave me a hug as I finished my marathon in Berlin and completed my 6 stars a couple months ago. So I can tell you, when I see Ted hug someone else at the end of the race, that Ted gives out the best hugs. And let me tell you another New York Marathon secret. Inside the pouch that Ted wears is a packet of wet wipes. And as Super Mario was getting photographed and about to be interviewed for TV, Ted made sure to first wipe the sweaty crust from Mario's mouth so he would look his best in his television interviews. At a time where maybe your faith in the goodness of people may be a bit rattled, know that the people you see here are good people. Know that empathy still does exist. Thank you, New York, for this reminder. We need it now, more than ever.
So, did I get anyone? Mission accomplished. Really quickly, in the interest of time, some notes here. First and foremost, that video was recorded by an avid runner and a blogger and a videographer. His name is Michael Kafuzi, and he's very, very popular in the running community, and was there at our finish line and quickly popped this video up, and it really truly encompassed the beauty of what it is that we do. Mario Bellini, who finished his 37th total marathon he's done. It took him 10 hours, 1 minute, and 47 minutes to finish that event. And he was part of the 55,644 runners that completed the 2020 for TCS New York City Marathon, Hugh Brasher. So that right there is a teeny tiny piece of like the 55,644 stories that was just in New York, and you'll see well over 55,000 amazing stories this Sunday, and well over 30,000 plus in the TCS Sydney Marathon, and on and on and on. That's part of the marathon spirit.
Can I just add to that, because that is a perfect example of us copying what New York did. In 2019, we did not look after the back of the pack, and we damaged our brand. So our brand is about inspiring activity. That is what our purpose as an organization is. And the people that were slowest were the people that were not being looked after. So we took what Ted was doing, and we now keep our finish line open until midnight, so that people have until that time. And last year, Fred Tomlinson, who was 76, who was running in memory of his daughter who had died 40 years previously, he took 13 hours to do the marathon. But because of Ted and the work that he had done, we were able to greet him. And so it's a perfect example of how together we create this unbelievable community.
Incredible, and I think anyone in the audience who's planning on running on Sunday, and any other runners, however many you have, all have, as Hugo was saying through our research, they all have quite a specific goal when they show up on the day, whether it's to raise funds for a charity that's very close to their heart. Some, and incredibly in the same race, some people may be attempting a world record, and others are perhaps just trying to cross the finish line. But as a race director, what's your goal for Sunday, Hugh?
To have it as the most relaxed day of my year. For absolutely nothing to happen other than I walk around and have a wonderful day. What we have is a team, an incredible team of 150 people. This is one of a multitude of events that we organise. It is the signature event of London Marathon events. The day before, we've got 17,000 school kids running through that same finish line, and every single one of those children is being paid to do the event, and that money is going to their school through TCS and the sponsorship and the partnership that we have, which is incredible, is going to their school for computer equipment or sports equipment. So it's the team that are doing all the work. In reality, I'm there should something go wrong, so nothing should go wrong. My brain should be as empty of stuff, so if it needs to get filled, it can be filled. We often, go to each other's events and look at what each other has done. I've got the race directors of Rome, Dublin, Vienna, following the just seeing what's going on. And this is about us as Abbott World Marathon Majors reaching out to other races and building this community because of the benefits that it gives to the city, the benefits it gives to the population. But I just wanted to say that we learned so much from Ted, from New York Roadrunners, from Chicago Marathon, from all the Abbott World Marathon Majors. Just would like to say that the Queen's home is our finish line. That's all I'm saying.
Wayne, perhaps would you like to reflect on what your goals are for race day?
Our number one metric, and there's a number of metrics that are captured, are participant experience and our stakeholder experience surveys after the event. And of course, that's a nice, simple, short way to describe the key metric. But within participant experience, of course, there's measures right around the field of play, from when they turn up into Sydney, the event expo, the start venue, getting to the start venue, the process of getting on the start line, everything. But for us, especially this year, being our first year as an Abbott World Marathon Major and being the year we've grown the most in the history of the event, we're really looking at flows, crowd flows. How do we get people through train systems, metro systems onto the start line? The operational elements for us this year, so that we manage the growth successfully, is a real area of focus for us. So that's probably the area of participant experience we're looking at the most. And there's lots of things that go into that too, like medical resources and everything else, consumables on the course. But for us, the operational side of the event this year has probably a much bigger focus in terms of delivering the sort of participant experience that we want. And the same with our partners, making sure they have a good experience, our government agencies, that we all work well together and it's a successful event, and that people walk away going, that was fantastic. I'm going to bring a friend back if we can get in next year.
If we can get in.
Yeah. Or when they don't get in all of your races, they'll be coming to Sydney.
So one thing I'm really interested in is how you see your competitive set, because how do you frame that? Is it just other marathons, or do you also think about some of these other major events that people take part in, challenges like Ironman? High Rocks is becoming increasingly popular, at least among my friends, it seems. But how do you frame your competitive set? Ted, would you like to?
Yeah, I don't see it as competition in the sense of it's going to impact adversely the audience that would participate in our events. I welcome these different types of events. I think they're fantastic. I've participated in them. I participated in High Rocks last year, had such an amazing experience. I'm coming back for more, and I advocate for it. I said, hey, it's a great opportunity for people to be a part of. I have an approach that all events have a similar DNA. Every single event ultimately wants to ensure that, at least for us, safe and logistically sound, first and foremost, incredible experience, which summarizes what we all want to have at all of our events. That is true to a marathon, a 5K, a triathlon, a car show, a concert, a music festival, a beer garden. All of them share in the same thing, where they want everybody to come in, enjoy in that experience, and head home with a great, having had a great time. And to your point, net promoter score, which we all value. Did you have a good time at that experience? Yeah. Would you recommend it to someone? Yeah, I would. Would you come back and do that again? I would. Now, the marathon is a huge feat. I've often said, marathon day, it's not the hard part. It's the 3 to 6 to 8 months of training and preparation and sacrifice. That's the hard part. The race day is the culmination of all that work that you've put in. But when you walk away from that experience and somebody says, wow, I've always thought about doing that. What you think? I was like, it was hard, but it was the greatest day of my life. So I think I don't look at other major events as, oh my gosh, they're going to come and take our runners away from us. It's not the case. I see it more along the lines of, what can I learn from them that I can apply, or what can I share to those events to help elevate their experience?
And Dawna, do you have anything to add to that? Is there a knowledge sharing?
Well, I was just going to say, like, even, Hugh mentioned some other races outside the majors that are come in, and a lot of the events do that. A lot of our majors bring other events in, and they have race director, not conferences, but come in and learn and share. But we do that internally. So you'll see at any race, we just came, the three of us were just in Boston, and we flew here from Boston. Most of the races, the majors, are here for the London Marathon, and we're all getting together on Saturday. I don't know how Hugh does it, but he spends hours with us on Saturday. Great team, that's how he does it beforehand. I'm always like, you doing good? He's like, I'm doing great. You doing good? But I think it's important that we're all going to each other's events, because it's not just about when we sit in a room and we brainstorm and we talk, but just being able to experience each other's events, experience the start, the finish, the stories. And I think for the Abbott World Marathon Majors in general, it really is about the stories. Like, we all love, and especially probably in this room, to watch the elites, right? And see who's going to finish first, and is there going to be a world record or not? Where's the world record going to be? Taking place. But at the end of the day, it's about those individuals that get on the start line and they have these stories. And it might just be an internal personal story. It might be a story that some of us can learn from. But those people that are doing 6 hours, 7 hours, 8 hours, the ones that are the last ones at the finish line, I think that's really where we celebrate, like the Abbott World Marathon Majors celebrates all of those stories. And it's incredible for me because we have 7 right now incredible races, and the stories coming out of them are just amazing and need to be shared.
Mm-hmm. And we've touched on iconic landmarks, and I think the report probably has some fairly surprising results for those of you who are marathon experts. In particular, Madrid and San Francisco do quite well in terms of perceptions, but have relatively fewer participants versus Chicago, which is coming out as 27th by brand strength. So city brand appears to have an influence on the results of how marathons are perceived. So perhaps first to you, Wayne, how do you leverage and pay homage to the city where your marathon is based?
Well, we leverage it to its fullest, without question. I think part of us being selected as a candidate race and part of the scoring in the program is, how safe is the city? How beautiful is it? Is it going to be attractive? And these aren't specific criteria points, because I'll get in trouble off Mother Dawna over here if I do. So there are a lot of elements of the city itself that are part of the process, and obviously, destination marathons like the Sydney Marathon, they attract a lot of people, and the city is a core element of that. So the best thing you could do is showcase the city that they're coming to see. And we do that really well. Sydney's not a huge city compared to, some of the other cities that Abbott World Majors take place in. And, it's a fairly hilly city. So the good thing is we've got a whole bunch of beautiful tourist icons to distract people when they're running up and down those hills through Sydney. And people come into Sydney Marathon thinking this is going to be so hard, and they finish it saying, actually, that didn't feel hilly at all. And that's because we've got a beautiful city and it's well organised, and we make sure they have a good time and distract them on their way. But it's a really important part of it, but it's not just a part of the experience on the day. It's great for our visual assets and how we promote the event, 12 months of the year. And, that beautiful blue Sydney harbour with the Opera House finish line right next to it, and the harbour bridge is it's a perfect postcard promo shot that we take full advantage of. But you wish you had that, Hugh. Anyway, so it's really important. It's a really big part of the whole event, the experience, the city. It's not just the city though; it's the people too. And Aussies are really friendly. And one thing that we've sort of dedicated ourselves to is trying to make sure that the TCS Sydney Marathon is the funnest marathon, and we engage with them well past when they cross the finish line. For example, we have a pool party after the race at one of the biggest clubs in Sydney, where people just go and jump in the pool, get a free beer and stay there till midnight. In fact, it was the biggest grossing revenue day of the year, the last 2 years, the pool party marathon day, which goes to show all of these runners who don't drink for 6 months, when they finish that race, they're into it. But we want people to have a great marathon experience, a great city experience, and a great social experience. And that's a big part of what we're trying to build as, a core of our DNA moving forward.
Hugh, is that something that London can see, a pool party at the end in future years?
I'm not sure we quite have the weather that Sydney has for the pool party, but there are 73 pubs on the route, and and amazingly, 73 pubs are having their busiest trading day of the year on the day of the London Marathon, and you know, it is the most amazing street party where more than 55,466 people happen to be running 26.2 miles, and they are. You know, I talk about they're floating on a sea of positivity from that first step at Greenwich to that last step on the Mall. They are being cheered every step of the way. And there is nothing in life that you will ever feel like that day. None of us are Andy Murray. None of us have played on the centre court at Wimbledon. We're not Harry Kane scoring at Wembley. We are everyday human beings given this opportunity to be cheered in a positive way. And it is that positivity that we create that people want to come back for. And, you know, Net Promoter Score, the last 2 years, our NPS score for the marathon has been 88. Which for those of you who know it, NPS scores is absolutely unbelievable. But that is also so much about the crowds. That is about, you know, that cheering, the charities, the colour they bring, that feeling, genuinely the emotions that you will go through are unheralded. You might cross that line and think never again, but I can assure you within 24, 48 hours you will be going, I want that and I want it again.
Absolutely. Wayne, would you like to show your clip?
Sure, why not?
I think seeing as we're talking about spectators, it's a good time.
It's a little clip. This part's not in the new course, sorry.
So I think you can see some of that good Australian humour coming through in a lot of those spectators' signs. And
Have you seen some of the signs around all the marathon? They've all got humour. Maybe a little quirky Aussie humour there.
And I think that, I mean, that's part of the beauty of a marathon is that you're, again, leveraging the local community. But one thing I'm interested in hearing about is the relationships that you build with the local city and local governments and how that has a role in driving success of the marathon. Perhaps, Ted, would you like to?
Yeah, I mean, you know, we've been very fortunate in the city of New York where the TCS New York City Marathon is the second highest grossing revenue generator in the sporting space behind the US Open tennis tournament, which is 10 days. So we're, you know, a weekend, that's 10 days, bringing over $500 million of economic impact. The city and the state and the region sees the value in that and receives in that value as well. And That is a huge part of it, and that's where you have that significant partnership that we've seen in Sydney and in London. I remember Kerry Pinkowski and the team sharing stories of representatives from Tokyo coming to the other majors to see that size and scope and engagement and saying, okay, how do we bring this back to our market? How do we bring this here? There is value from tourism and conventions when you think about the value of, the internal term of heads and beds. Like how many folks are coming into market? How does this benefit? And when we're talking to folks and you realize the economic benefit of someone coming in and buying that I Love New York t-shirt or grabbing a bacon, egg, and cheese bagel, that's how you say it in New York, bacon, egg, and cheese. Really quick, one word. Grabbing a newspaper, the New York Times on Monday, and seeing the great photos and imagery, that's all economic benefits that come back to the market, that the market then values and truly steps up as a true partner. When your senior most operations person for the NYPD, New York Police Department, is quoting our team saying, which is better together, that's value. That's true equity there. From a small personal side, my mom was a maid, housekeeping for 18 years in New York City. And it wasn't until I came on board with New York Roadrunners back in '01 when my mother finally figured out what it is that I do for a living. And I told her, I said, Mom, I'm gonna be working for the marathon. And she's like, the marathon, I love the marathon. Now here's my mother, immigrant from Haiti. I'm first generation, born in the States. All my siblings are college educated, all went traditional tracks, nursing, architecture. I don't know what Ted's doing. He's out there doing something. And it all came home when she would speak about the marathon and say, it's the best time in New York. And I'm like, why is that? Everyone's so happy. The energy's so great. People from all over the world come in. They leave these lovely tips. Like, they're so wonderful. And, it trickled down. And, those tips that folks from literally all over the world and left, $1 here, $2 there on the counter as my mom and her colleagues were servicing the rooms that was my lunch money. That's where, when that's the kind of economic impact that we're creating in the spaces that we're in. So it all came full circle when I ran my first marathon in '08, and she was waiting at the finish line for me. So from the, oh my gosh, I know what you do now, to finish watching me cross the finish line, that took forever. Bless that woman for sitting out there. It took a while for me to cross that finish line, but that brings it home, the economic impact there on the ground, but also what that city partnership and engagement really looks like.
And last question from me, and then I'll open to the audience if you have any questions. I'll let you start thinking about that. But I understand that diversity and inclusion are important areas across various different walks of life, but in particular for a priority for all of you. And there have been many recent initiatives. For example, in 2024, London became the first marathon to offer prize money parity for both wheelchair and able-bodied athletes. So when we talk about inclusivity and diversity, who are your target audiences, and how do you think about framing greater diversity and inclusion? And perhaps both Dawna and Hugh can take this one.
Do you want to start?
Yeah, I was just going to say, as a whole, every race has its own, its own personality. Of course, we've seen that through the numbers and the images, but what we attempt to do is just constantly strive to be better. And so when a London Marathon or someone comes around and does something incredible, we all look to that, right? And say, okay, what else can we do? And I love that about the group, is we all may be starting at different levels, but we're all striving to get to be better. I think for one of the things we always talk about is how can we bring more people into the sport, right, constantly, and bring everybody into the sport. And I think, we're seeing with like our kids runs here that we're doing it. We're seeing, Chicago's not sitting here right now, but Chicago, with even their other, not their marathon, but their half marathon, bringing in the community aspect of it and trying to drive individuals that maybe never would think ever of running a marathon. Well, how do they get in, and how do we help them get in? And so I just think that's one of the things that is so important to us right now in London. I'll let Hugh talk, because they've really kind of led that path, I think, for all of us.
Yeah, I think, so firstly, just the city, without the mayor, without the Metropolitan Police, without the emergency services, without Transport for London, without the boroughs, the event wouldn't happen. And going back to 1980, having come back from New York, and my father and John Disley, 15 months after that article, 18 months after the article, was the first London Marathon. And he went to Sir Horace Cutler, who was the chair of the GLA, as I think it was then, and said, could he have the streets of London? And the answer was yes, as long as not a penny of public money goes the way of the marathon. So actually my father, in his contrary way, ensured that any money that we make goes back to inspiring activity, and that's the foundation, London Marathon Foundation, that's given over £110 million to inspire activity around the UK. But go back to what I said earlier about activity being a right, a human right. We are very proud that we've got 1,500 disabled people taking part, running this year in the TCS London Marathon. We go out to groups. Last year there was a 19-year-old young man called Lloyd Martin, and Lloyd has an intellectual impairment, Downs runner. He became the youngest person with an intellectual impairment to run a marathon. And then he went to New York, around New York. He got more than 20 million hits across the various different social media channels. He was the most watched story. And the power of the possibility that a marathon can show means it is so important that we go to all areas of society, that we will celebrate more someone who is inactive, who then becomes active, than we were someone who is active becoming more active. We want to encourage people into this incredible positive community, and that means it truly should be accessible to everybody. And we, yes, we do a lot, but New York also does a huge amount, and we feed off each other. We take, it's different diversity in New York to that in London. We look at different characteristics, but fundamentally we're trying to make the marathon really open to everybody.
If I may, one of the things that was really interesting, we're all in Boston, Chris and the team and I, and they were celebrating the 50th anniversary of the first wheelchair competitor there, and that participant was there and spoke and was the Grand Marshal. And to talk about how far the sport and the industry has gone in that space, particularly with athletes with disability, and really working hard to be of service to these folks and create an opportunity for them to engage and then turn around and inspire is huge. And Dawna said it best, where we're all learning from one another with the goal of reaching, if not excelling. And 50 years ago, on a modified regular wheelchair to do 26.2 miles of Boston, which is one of the more challenging marathons in the world, is a huge accomplishment. And it's, I was watching the broadcast, and they said it best, was like, look how far we've gone in 50 years. Where are we going to be in the next 50?
And I think one of the most amazing things hearing all of you speak is that there's a parallel to a marathon itself, where you're not really competing against each other, you're supporting each other and trying to reach for goals and achieve together.
Far together.
It's incredibly inspiring. And I think it'd be great if we could go to some audience questions. Please, if you could introduce yourself, keep the question nice and succinct. We've not got much more time.
Hi, Alex Donaldson from SportCal here. We saw on Hugo's slides earlier on that, for example, for the New York Marathon, sponsorship makes up about a quarter of the revenue. Are any of you able to put a specific number on how much sponsorship generates for you guys? And obviously, in the past few years since TCS has come in, there's been a massive growth in purpose-driven sponsorships. Are you guys seeing more and more sponsors and more higher value sponsors every year as the purpose-driven partners start to come in and look at the marathon as a vehicle for their brand?
So firstly, definitely not going to put a figure on it. Just want to be really clear.
Word for sure. Better safe than sorry.
But in terms of more and more sponsors becoming aware of the power of the positive nature of what we do and the engagement that they can have with a customer that is truly a deep engagement. And even though the marathon might take place on one day, the people are actually, for anyone interested, the ballot for next year's London Marathon opens tomorrow at 9 o'clock. The engagement that a brand can have over that full year and the depth of that engagement, and you saw some of the metrics, is incredible, and therefore we are in theory, you actually can't get a sponsorship point in the London Marathon. My commercial director said we're full, at which point I said surely we can find somewhere. But look, it's so important that we to understand what a brand wants and then deliver it for the brands. And TCS have been incredible in terms of the sponsorship of New York, of Sydney, Abbott in terms of all the races. It's 10 years since, this is the 10th anniversary of our partnership with Abbott. And it's, I find it amazing that the BBC on Monday, the headline was Paula Radcliffe gets her 6-star medal, right? Now that is creating a brand. And I do remember various different running press pouring scorn on what we were doing, right? They had no idea of what we were planning. And even in this room now, we're not telling you all the things we're planning, right? But it is about this community growing it because we are a force for good. And any brand that wants to be a force for good, they should be with us, and they want to be with us.
David?
I'm David Haig, as you probably saw. I just wanted to talk about the role of broadcasting, because it seems from the numbers that you don't make much out of broadcasting, and yet the thing which has supercharged a lot of sports over the last 25 years has been serious amounts of dosh coming in for broadcasting rights. So I imagine you probably give broadcasting rights out free to boost the sport, do you? But, well, maybe you don't. But I'm interested to know what the future role for that is, because that would dramatically change the whole profile. And I watched the Paris Olympics marathon final, which I thought was absolutely fascinating, right to the end. The backdrop, but the faces. I think they did the camera work on that extremely well. And I watch things like the Masters, and they've all been transformed by the way that they do broadcasting. So, what's the plan? How are you going to supercharge yourself with that?
Short and sweet, in the interest of time, that is a tremendous opportunity that we've been having a lot of conversations around. Because of the demand and interest. I also think it's balancing it out. Obviously, we're seeing tremendous demand in our brand and product, to the earlier question where sponsors want to be a part of it. And what's really amazing with TCS and Abbott is the commonality in message and in mission. So it's not hard. You're not selling anything when you have a partner that is in line with you in health, wellness, youth, education, engagement. That lines up really well. From the broadcast side, our CEO at New York Roadrunners, Rob Simulcare, comes from a broadcast space, NBC Sports, ESPN, and he came on board 2.5 years ago, looked at this portfolio and said, there's a huge opportunity here to tell the story of this marathon from first to final, to amplify the message that our partners are looking to tell, to really elevate the beauty of our markets and our cities. So the short answer is yes, yes, yes. We see it, we know it, we're targeting it as the next step for our brand and product.
Can I just say there's a really important part in our partnership with the BBC. We've been live on the BBC since 1981. And I believe that the reason that we are ranked number one here is a lot that partnership that we have, the storytelling that they do, the amplification, the social purpose that we have, and that's part of the BBC Charter as well. So I think that, again, every race has differences, but that partnership for us is pretty well sacrosanct. And it's about inspiring activity. It's about telling those stories, and it's about getting it as wide as we can. And 40% of the watching TV population at the time of the London Marathon will be watching the London Marathon. And in these days of the polarization of TV, it's unheralded. It has become an institution of turn the music playing, turn the TV on and feel the stories.
Dawna?
Yeah, and I was going to, really just Ted said it all. Rob came in and has just said, we're missing the boat here on some things. And so it's definitely been a big topic of discussion of, what can we do more maybe on the international, right? A lot of have really great local partners, but what can we do on the international media and how can we tell the stories? And especially because we're not just one marathon, but we're now a series, how can we tell the stories across all of them? And especially, I brought the 6-star medal today. And so, this is what people are striving for, and we will down the road have a 9-star medal as well. But the stories that go into the people that are walking around with these on their necks that we just in Boston, that you'll see here, on race day in London, there's so much that we can be telling. And I just remember when I was a very, very competitive swimmer growing up, and I just remember the stories like of the Ironman, right? Watching that and being able to see, and it drives you to want to do it, right? I want to have people in their living rooms watching the television and then saying, oh my goodness, I can do that, because they've seen not the individual crossing the finish line first, but maybe they saw the person crossing the finish line last and their story. And so being able to kind of drive them to maybe get on that starting line, I think is so important. But we have the ability to do it, so it's just about when can we do it, how are we going to do it, what does that look like?
Please.
Mike Laughlin, Global Sustainable Sport. Hugh, I was with Kate Chapman the other day. She was on a panel I was running, and she said that London Marathon was now becoming a social impact company. So you're kind of redefining your purpose. And it got me thinking, because I think that marathon running creates a lot of social value. But how do you describe social value? And I just wondered if the Abbotts were working on that. We saw that sustainability was quite high in your index there. But actually, there's a lot of talk about economic, but it's the social value that I think creates quite a lot of value in this space. I just wondered what you're doing in that area.
So firstly, Kate Chapman is our head of sustainability, and she's absolutely brilliant. And the work that she has led for the organisation in this yesterday, I think we announced that we are the first company. Just want to say that to be awarded evergreen status by the Council for Responsible Sport. And that goes across social impact as much as it does economic impact, as much as it does your sustainability credentials. And it's probably one of the proudest things I am in terms of the position I hold, which is when I started, London Marathon was an events company. We are now a social impact company. I believe what we are doing is showing a way that you can create social environmental and economic sustainability. It is the 3 Ps, people, profit and planet. You can't do one without the other two. You've got to look at it together. And again, we learn from each other how to do it. I think we announced that London Marathon was gold status as the first biggest event ever to get the gold status in 2024, and then Ted trumped it in November 24. So again, it just shows you about this competition. But it is paramount importance to us as organisations and to our sponsors. You saw Schneider Electric up there. You saw BMW. TCS, one of the primary things was a rescore app that they had developed to allow us to properly score ourselves. And that's where this partnership is so deep. And the fact that, this comes from the top of TCS, from Chandra, who absolutely believes in the power of marathon running to change people's lives, to make those lives healthier. And this is about long term. Running a marathon is not just, I'm going to go and do it tomorrow. You have to train. And by doing those training, you will change your life, and in the long term, it will be better. But it's an intrinsic part of what we do.
Is that a journey that you're also on?
Yeah,
Wayne?
just again, taking baby steps at the moment, but I think it's all of our objectives to have a more positive impact across the board, and sustainability and all of these other areas are very important to all of us. So, we're biting off what we can chew, and we've got plans to improve across the board, but yeah, we look at it every day.
Brilliant. Final question, and then I think we'll move to the refreshment break. Yes, the lady in fifth row.
Thank you. My name's Amanda Calder. I'm a police officer from Sydney, and thank you for having us here today. Superintendent Devaney is the police commander, so thank you, Wayne, for inviting us today. One thing I just wanted to touch on was public safety, and obviously for all major events across the world, and we've heard Ted talk about NYPD and your relationship, and of course Hugh with the London Met. I think that from a law enforcement perspective, it's easy for us to measure the success of our police operation through our crime data and statistics and what happens. But what I was more interested in today was to understand, and I think Hugo mentioned safety as one of the key indicators for people wanting to come to your major event. So how do you measure that public perception of safety across your events? And is it something that you've experienced with your police departments in community engagement activities or other ways the police have contributed to ensuring that your events are safe, other than having police on street corners in high visibility, having police at key crowded places, strategy, vehicle mitigation, from that terrorism perspective, because we are living in a world where unfortunately we are seeing terrorism occur across the world. And so I just was interested to hear, as Wayne said, in building Sydney events, what your experiences are with law enforcement and how we could maybe work on that to make Sydney a more attractive place, even though we already are.
You want me to touch this really quick? Yeah, I'll be quick because I know we're out of time. Partnership, and it isn't just in the case like having force multiplied, personnel on the course, personnel at our venues. That's key, but our partners at NYPD are standing with us as we're opening up the marathon ceremony with our blue line painting. With either the police chief or their deputy. There's a stand-up press conference that we do at the marathon finish line where we run through the data on where we are looking at marathon weekend and how it's in line with the U.S. Open, it's in line with the Macy's Thanksgiving Day Parade, it's in line with a New Year's celebration in Times Square. Like, we're in those level of tier as far as safety and security is involved. So showing that partnership side by side in the communication and amplifying that communication to your participants, to the spectators, and ensuring that sense of confidence is critical and key that's there. Sharing best practices is huge. So you coming to market here is tremendous, to being able to see what Hugh and the team and the local police agencies are doing, looking at what their joint command center looks like, looking at what their operations center looks like, talking about those moving pieces and parts. That is all critical parts to then amplifying and taking away the best practices and applying them to your market that's there. But it's really important that our city agency partners, particularly in law enforcement, are standing side by side in the communication to the general public to ensure that it will be a safe and logistically sound event. We also have members of the force that are running our races, both in New York. Our deputy police commissioner has run a number of the other majors as well. So when they are in market, they make that effort to connect with the local agencies as well. So it's an incredible thing to see and learn and take away from. So there'll be things that you'll see and experience today that you'll apply in your market. I welcome you to connect with us in New York. We can connect you with our PD personnel there. It's a long flight to New York, so you can always make a Zoom call or a Teams call. But sharing those best practices go far in that case. So, Hugh?
Yeah, look, each race is different from the viewpoint of how they're policed. But we're again going back to we learn. My father took the Metropolitan Police Commissioner to New York back in 1980. I think they might have gone on Concorde in 1980 because my father was trying to run a sub 4-second mile. If he ran up and down Concorde at Mark II speed, would he be the first person ever to run a sub? It's one of the stories from a long time back. Anyway, it is, I think, I don't know whether you're going to Palestra in terms of how we are co-located with the police, with all the blue light services, but it really is that the city becomes a place of joy. And that's actually the amazing thing. It is just such this positive experience. And when you're having positive experiences, generally the world is a better place. People are happier, they're smiling more, and that's fundamentally all that we're trying to create, is a more joyous, more together, more unified world.
Great place to finish us off. Thank you, Hugh, and thanks so much. And ladies and gentlemen, if you could thank our panel.